Divas, after a brief hiatus, I have returned to the channel. I don't know. Life got busy and filming has just been tricky, but we're back. I wanted to talk about the International Booker Shortlist because they are announcing the winner on Tuesday, May 20th. And since the internet loves when people hate things, I am going to start with my least favorite on the short list and then work to who I would love to see win the prize. I do think it's tricky in these instances to try to predict like who the judges will pick as the winner. So what I'm going to do is just kind of frame it through my lens and who I would love to see win. That said, I there are two I would love to see take it. There are two that I wouldn't be upset about. There's one I would like shrug, and one I'd riot. You know what I mean? Like it's like how upset would I be? Like I would buy a ticket from Newark to go to London to have that chat in person. You know what I mean? Like that's how much I'd just be like, oh no, I don't want to see this one win the prize. And I say Newark because of everything that's been going on, right? Like that's the risk I would be willing to take. Like that's how passionately I am against this one title winning out of respect and love. Like, listen, I respect that it has been accomplished as a work. Also, my understanding is that there is not tons of literature written in this language, with the limited research that I've done, to be fair. So great, but that title would be Heartlamp. I, yeah, didn't love it. Didn't love it. It's a collection of stories set in, I think, South India. Yes, look at that. Occasionally I can remember details. Set in South India, and none of the stories came together for me. I oftentimes they would employ this trope where the author would start telling the story about something, and then the ultimate story would be about something different. I love that. I actually think it's a really sexy trope. In some of the writing that I do, I employ that tactic as well. I think it's really interesting. But it only works if you can take the seemingly disparate ideas and weave them together in a way that actually ultimately lifts up the conclusion of the story, right? Or the point of the story. It didn't do that. We would start over here, and then it would feel just jammed together into the actual story we were telling. Oftentimes there would be characters introduced here that I didn't feel played central roles in the story that was actually being told. It was just frustrating from beginning to end, every story. Occasionally the very end of the stories would be cool, and it would come together in kind of like a fun, sexy way. And I think that is what is seducing people about this collection, or and maybe the judges. I don't know, because there's like a really interesting story about a woman and this pair of heels, and her husband is really wanting her to wear these heels, and what does that mean as a woman? And the lens with which this collection of stories talks about women, I think, is interesting. And so this was one of those, right? And at the very end of the story, like I think the heels like explode, and like the ending is really cool, and I think it sends a really interesting message. But that's not a good story. You know what I mean? Like the ending message does not a good story make. And like in 2025, I'm no longer going to be bamboozled by folks who write mediocre stories, be them full novels or short stories, and then give us a solid ending and then have us try to believe that was a good experience all the way through, because it's not. It happened to me recently in a different book, and I can't think of what it's called, but the internet was all a Twitter about it. I don't know. I'll put the book here. I had that same experience here, and it really frustrated me. The ending was really cool and super emotional, and it even like it got me. I was like very emotional, but like the work itself, no, made me so mad. Anyways, so all that to say, if Heartlamp wins, I'm risking Newark and I'm flying to London to have a chat. No one will see me. No one will care what my thoughts are, but that's how I feel. Then the one that I'm like, I would get it, but I would kind of like roll my eyes and shrug a little bit is Perfection. Listen, it was one of those, I genuinely hated it until I loved it. And I get what it was trying to do, right? Like, I think that out of context of like the Booker or International Booker, sure, I get the work. I think it's interesting. I think it's contemplative. I would actually love to have a book club of millennials who read this and then talk about it because it's specifically about the millennial experience. But within this short list and within some of the ones I want to talk about that were on the long list that didn't make the short list, it just was fine. You know what I mean? It is about millennials and it's about the like it's a commentary on the millennial at large and specifically like a nomadic lifestyle or the like digital nomad of it all. And like, sure, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily uncovering anything revelatory about that conversation. And maybe that's what my problem is with it, right? Like, I think it's an interesting concept. I think it's some like interesting that we're getting literature about that and kind of like taking a hard look at the millennial of it all. But I just don't think it added anything. So like it was done well. I think the writing was beautiful. Like I understand like the lauded praise for like the larger crafting of it all, but like to win the International Booker, like I don't know, it's not for me. It's not for me. Okay, next we have two that I enjoyed and I wouldn't be upset at, and I could see a world where they would win, though I would be shocked for various reasons why if this next one would take the prize, and that is a leopard skin hat. It is a really interesting tale about, or it's like different vignettes. It's like not a collection of stories, but I think vignettes is how I would describe it. Like everything connects together in that they're all like all the characters are the same and the relationships are the same, and that's really what the book is doing. It's like analyzing the relationships of all of the different characters, but it's not necessarily what I would consider like plot driven. But in that way I think it was a really fascinating meditation on kind of like humans and humanity and our interconnectedness and like how well do we know a person, right? And the writing is so beautiful, and I did want to read this one quote because I think this is like really gorgeous. um Basically, the narrator said to himself, the idea we form of others comes solely from their relationship with ourselves. Seen through their relationship with someone else, they are necessarily slightly different. And should we catch a glimpse of them in the privacy of their own self, which is impossible without spying on them or rummaging through their papers, they are someone of whom we know strictly nothing. Isn't that fucking brilliant? I I like it's giving me gems like that in like dispersed throughout the work, and like that's why I love reading the International Booker Shortlist. Like, you know what I mean? For quotes like that, like it makes me think about my life and my friends and how well do you know yourself and how well do you know anyone. And it kind of leans into that adage of like people are going through things that like nothing about, so like stop being an asshole. You know what I mean? That's kind of, I think, like in a really simplified, undignified American, right? Because this is like beautiful French, right? Like way, that's one of the takeaways I think from even just that short passage. And yeah, there's a lot to do with mental health throughout the book too. One of the central characters, or one of the central characters that we're looking at through and following through this work, um is dealing with mental health issues, and there's an unaliving, and it's just I think it's beautiful, and I think it made me really think about life and think about how we connect with people, and like it changed me a little bit. And I think that's my problem with Perfection, is that I think intellectually it's an interesting conversation, and but I don't think that the author added anything to it, which I already said, but in the sense that like I didn't leave thinking about it. I didn't leave changed. I didn't leave reassessing my millennial life. And with a leopard skin hat, I did. And I like still like there when I read that passage, there are two or three friends that like pop up in my head, and I'm just like, wow, like how well do I know them? And then it almost makes me want to get to know them even better, which like that's beautiful, right? Like that's literature. That to me is the Booker, or it's particularly the International Booker. I think the International Booker tends to make me really think and evaluate because of all of the different cultural inputs, right? So yeah, I don't know. And that pass, oh, it always like makes me a little emotional. Anyways, so I like that. I would be happy if that won. I would be surprised based on everything here and just based on different like mumblings on the internet about different people's feelings about all of these works. Like I would be surprised, but I would be happy. The next one that like lives in the same space as a leopard skin hat is the on the calculation of volume 1. So this book reimagines Groundhog Day, basically. But I do think that it takes that trope and goes like very deep with it. And I think that in the monotony of this like repeat, right, of this one day, I think it's November 18th. Yes, November 18th. The protagonist is experiencing that day, I think for like a year. So you're having like 365 November 18th. And it it takes that known trope and it puts the like a magnifying glass on our interpersonal relationships and on monotony, and what does that mean, and how does that impact our lives, and how are we complicit in monotony, and how where are we able to change that, and where is it kind of within our power and our responsibility to push back on that. And it really put, I think, a fascinating lens on some interpersonal relationships that happened in the book, and for us to really think about them and the value and how life and monotony impact that. I really liked it. Now, I almost went out and picked up on the calculation of volume 2, because I think that 'cause there's at least another one, if not 3, I think. And I will say, and this is why it's in this middle category for me, I don't know if I can live through another November 18th, respectfully. So, all of that said, I think that the messages are powerful. Again, I think it made me think about my life, and it impacted me and made me consider how I move through space based on the different like ideas that it was exploring in this work. So, because of that, I can see it living in the middle. But yeah, I don't know if I need to experience another November 18th. I think it might have kind of saturated the message in volume 1 for me. Okay. Now we're into the final 2, and I would be happy if either one won. There is a world where I personally I think it's between these two, potentially between on the calculation of volume 1 and then these two. It's a bit of a toss up, but I do think based on how much I loved one of them, I think that for me, second place, the second spot is Small Boat. Which actually, and I'm so grateful, the International Booker Prize, or the Booker Prize at large, put out a call on social media for folks to apply to receive one of the shortlist. And they sent this to me, which I thought was like so kind. And I felt I was like so honored with my like, little micro following and the big, scheme of the internet. I just thought that was really kind. And it really meant a lot to me. I have so much respect for this prize, even when I don't love who gets it, right? We could talk about last year in a different video. That was for I love the international. I think it was for the regular Booker Prize. Shh, don't tell. Because the cheese stands alone with that one. But no, last year's international Booker was Kairos, which loved, 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 loved. I could talk about that all day. So, Small Boat. Very grateful that they sent it to me. I really appreciate it. Small Boat is about I think it's a fictionalized imagining of a real life event that happened in 2021, and a boat full of migrants was attempting to cross the channel and they didn't make it. And the fictionalized account takes a look at the Coast Guard. I think it's Coast Guard. That could be my um US lens on this. But yeah, I think it's yes, Coast Guard. Um she it takes a look at, and I do believe that this is recorded because she in reality, like in the actual event, faced a lot of heat for things that she said during the recorded incident. And the first section takes a look at that. And it made me uncomfortable because I felt like the book was trying to drive a lot of sympathy for this character. And I would argue that there was a lot of very questionable actions and questionable words that were being employed there. And really the book is taking a look at that and what does all of that mean. So I was approaching it knowing that, but it made me uncomfortable because I was like, well, where is this going to go? Because if you're building this to try to just build sympathy for this woman, I was like, that doesn't, it's not resonating with me. So I was uncomfortable in section one. Then section two, it takes us onto the boat and we get like the migrants POV. And like that was brilliant, epic, loved. Then section three brought it all together and framed section one in a way for me that totally changed my POV. Section three, I think, holds the Coast Guard a little more accountable, but it also takes a mirror and puts it at the reader and puts it more importantly than the reader at like the world at large, and kind of forces a conversation and an inward look at how we as society are engaging with migrants and what is our responsibility and how that has shaped basically everything. And at what point is it the collective's responsibility to make a change? And I loved that. And I thought it was done very successfully. It didn't feel preachy to me. It felt very true and authentic. And then it framed the first section again, like I had said, like in a different way. And I looked at it differently. And it wasn't building sympathy for what she did, but more of just building a 360-degree character. So we could see like, this is what she did. These are her reasonings for it. And then in the third section, it's kind of like, oh, well, and this is why she got to where she did. Fascinating. What's our role in that? What's our part in that? How do we make change? I think it's really done. I think it's done really well. I would not be surprised if it won. And I'd be happy if it won. But for me, if I had my druthers, I would give the prize to Under the Eye of the Big Bird. Listen. It is a controversial take here on Beyonce's internet because I know a lot of people have feelings about Under the Eye of the Big Bird that do not align with what I just said. Let me explain. And to be fair, I want to at least give a caveat that like that was the last one I read. Okay? And I did my research before I read it. And I heard everyone saying how confused they were for most of the book. And then it came together at the end. Also, so I read it not expecting to have any of it make sense. Okay. So I went into it I don't know if you've all studied Italian, particularly from someone who's a native Italian speaker or like someone who's from Italy. The way they teach Italian is let it wash over you. Like, relax, you silly American. Just like let it wash over you. You will retain it. Just listen. Just be okay in the unknowing of it all. That to me is how I approached Under the Eye of the Big Bird. And I think to my benefit, right? And to the book's benefit from its relationship with me as the reader. So that could have been why. I will also say I tend to be more like inclined to reading that way anyways. So knowing that, so you know what I mean? So like my baseline is that, and then knowing that going in, I was probably even doubly like, oh, I don't know anything. Like my Pisces rising was just like living its best life, right? Like, I don't know anything that's going on, and this is just so great. And oh, who's this? And oh, these people are named like their birth order, and these people have like different names, and like this person I think changed their name, and like great, love it, cool. Okay. And I loved that. So I love not really knowing what's going on as long as it's brought together for me. Okay. And I don't think that this is the same thing that happened in Heartlamp where it's like tomfoolery Magoo and then like has a good ending. No, no, no. Because in this book, the reason why it all came together for me, A, the chapters were brilliantly written and the pacing was different. I had to like really slow down to take it all in. And the way it was written, I think, forced that. But the reason it came together was because of these brilliantly crafted through lines that existed from the first what do they call these? They're not chapters, but they're these like sections, right? And there are brilliantly crafted, very specific through lines that are consistent and makes it clear, at least to me, that the author like knew what they were doing, right? Like they had built the world in a very clear way that made a lot of sense, and that came through for me, and it worked for me. Again, obviously didn't work for everyone, but I loved it. And I thought it was a brilliant take on humanity and humanity's struggle and AI and how all of that will potentially come together and coexist, and how does it coexist, and like where's the give and take of it all, and like a really interesting, I think, accurate POV on AI itself. It's a very dystopian speculative fiction Japanese, right? So if those are all things that you like, I think you will love this. But that said, it's, again, not for everybody, but I just, it really worked for me. I loved it to the point that when I finished it, I wanted to go back and like map everything out, because I was like, oh, as I was reading it, I was like, oh, I remember that name. Oh, interesting. Interesting the way they wove that in. Oh, they talked about this role in society here, but they also talked about it over there. Interesting. I wonder if those connect. And then at the end, it starts to mention all of those things again and brings it back together. And like, I really did want to go back and map it out. Am I don't know. It's part of the fun of it, I think, is that it was all kind of like you weren't quite sure where in history you were at some points. Like, I think it's brilliant, and I don't know if I need to, but to me, the biggest thing is that I wanted to. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? Okay. So those are the six. I will be very honest with you all. I think that there are four from the long list that I have not read. I know. I've been reading a lot this year, and I have a lot of goals, and four of them just didn't happen. Solenoid, because it's literally a honker and a half, and I just didn't make the commitment. On a Woman's Madness, and honestly, I skipped that one because I didn't hear great things. Everyone said it just didn't work. I really wanted it to, it just didn't work. So respectfully, that one just didn't make it on the list. The Book of Disappearance, which I might end up reading. The only reason I didn't, I was like ready to start it, and then they announced the shortlist, and so then I pivoted because it didn't make the shortlist. And then the last one was The Monster Behind the Door, I think. That one I might read because I've heard good things, and that one just sounds interesting. So I may finish that one for sure, and then probably The Book of Disappearance. The other two, unclear. I actually have heard good things about Solenoid though, so like I might later in the summer. We'll see. But three that were on the long list that did not make the short list that I did read that I loved were Hunchback, which from Deep Love and Affection should have been on the short list, and bare minimum, it would have been in the top three. Like, that's how much I think it should have been on the short list. Yeah. Definitely over Heartlamp. Well, yeah, definitely over Heartlamp, and I think over Perfection as well. Yeah, even over Leopard Skin Hat. Oh, sorry, Live, Laugh, Love. No disrespect to any of those titles, but I just Hunchback is really brilliant, and I think you all should read it. It goes in. It's about this woman who is dealing with cerebral myopathy, and it begs the question of like what makes us human, and it looks at sexuality, which is so interesting with someone who is differently abled in that specific way, talking about sex, the revolutionary, like, and pick up Hunchback. And then I really enjoyed Reservoir Bitches. Now, to be fair, it's a collection of Mexican stories, and they're interconnected. And I did read it when I was in Mexico, in a pool in Mexico. So maybe the experience helped influence that, to be fair. But I really enjoyed it. And I do think, as a collection of stories, if we wanted a collection of stories in the shortlist, it was better than Heartlamp. Oh, I know. Don't hate me. And also, last but not least, Eurotrash. Listen, I know some people on the internet with lots of followers did not like this book. I loved this book. I thought it's a story about a man and his mother, and I think that it's like intentionally grotesque in terms of like money and affluence. Like, yeah, I think it's like a commentary on it. I think it's intentional to be kind of obnoxious, and it is this like very fascinating relationship between this mother and son, and it leads to this place in the end that like really again sheds a lot of light on a lot of conflict that has happened leading up to that. And I thought the ending was so beautiful in a way that tied everything together, just in a way that I loved. Yeah, I really loved Eurotrash. I thought it was really special. um yeah. So, and which is a bummer because I do feel like Hunchback and Eurotrash actually would have been at the top for me. So maybe actually, okay. So out of these, with the acknowledgement that there are four that I haven't read, so like there's a slight gap there, which I apologize, but I'm, honest about it. I do think that like my top six, out of having read what, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, out of nine of these would be 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, nine of them would be Hunchback, Eurotrash, Small Boat, Under the Eye of the Big Bird, On the Calculation of Volume 1. Oh, and probably a leopard skin hat. That I think would have been my top six. I did leave Reservoir Bitches out. Yeah, I don't think I would have needed that collection, or a story collection in the final six. I did like it, but I think that probably would have been my top six. It would have been fighting it out between a leopard skin hat and Reservoir Bitches, I think. But yeah. Anyways, a lot of yapping about a lot of foreign literature, but this is one of my favorite prizes of the year. I think that translated literature is so powerful. I think that even through the translation, or almost even specifically because of the translation, it is such a unique reading experience. Each one of these, like you feel the French influence, you feel this like Mexican influence, you feel the like Japanese influence. It's just, I love it. It like, even through the English, agnostic of where it's set, right? Like you feel the culture in it. Oh, the German that with Eurotrash, and again, like the German with Kairos, like love. So yeah, that this is just, I appreciate you all listening to me yap about this, because I am this like, this translated literature really holds a powerful space like in my reading life and in my life in general. Again, like even that section I read from A Leopard Skin Hat, like that truly probably changed many of the relationships in my life, or if nothing else, like the lens with which I view them and approach them. So yeah. Anyways, I would love to know in the comments what you all think. Please let me know if you think I'm wrong. I think that this is so fun to debate this stuff. I was already talking to somebody on a different platform about their POV on this, which was totally different than mine. And yeah. So, anyways, I would love to hear what you all think. And I cannot wait for Tuesday the 20th to hear who they crown as this year's International Booker Prize winner. Talk to you soon.